Have you ever seen a lake that was perfectly still? I'm talking like it looks like glass kind of still. Now, when most people see a beautiful still body of water, they probably want to just sit and admire it. Like, whoa, it's so beautiful. Not this guy. If you're anything like me, after about 30 seconds, your first thought is to grab a rock and do what? Yeah, chuck it into the perfectly still lake. I know, I'm like a toddler, but something cool happens when you do that, when you throw a rock into a lake, especially a very still, clear one. The rock lands in the water, and you have the splash, but then what forms around the splash? Yeah, the ripples. And that's my favorite part. Like all of these like little rings that start spreading across the whole pond. I think it's so cool. Now, we've been talking about getting through the darkness, you know, like the hard things in life, and the truth is, most of the time, that, like the lake and the rock, is what a time of darkness looks like. Because there's always the person who is directly hit by a difficult circumstance, like where the rock lands. But then there are the people hit by the ripples. You know what I'm saying? Like the people around the impact who are affected as well. And that's what today's about. Because here's the thing, being caught in the ripple effect of someone who is directly going through the darkness can be very difficult and confusing as well. I have a friend who lost someone very close to him, and man, he was devastated. And not just for a week, for like months. And I didn't know what to do. I mean, sure, I was sad, but not like he was, you know? I hadn't lost someone that I loved deeply. So I found myself with all kinds of questions, like how long will he feel like this? How long should he feel like this? How long before he gets back to normal? What in the world should I do? You know, what should I say? And I bet some of you have been in the exact same situation. You weren't struck directly by a tragedy, but someone close to you was. And you had a lot of the same questions that I had. And you felt kind of helpless and not very helpful, because when it comes to pain that people close to us are facing, most of us don't know what to do. So we generally respond in a few ways. First, we try to act normal. Often when we aren't sure what should be done, we just do nothing. And we simply try to act normal, even when things don't feel normal. We pretend like everything's okay, even when it's not okay. And we hope that maybe by acting normal, they'll get back to normal too. Or maybe we respond by talking. Like maybe if we just say the right thing, then the other person might feel better and get past it. But I think we often realize that the words coming out of our mouths aren't quite what we want to say. And in fact, the more we talk, the more we feel like we're not helping, you know? But we don't know what else to do, so we say things like, I know how you feel, when we don't. Or we say things like, keep yourself busy, when the person's like already exhausted. Or maybe we react to a friend's tragedy by going silent. Out of fear of saying or doing something stupid, many of us just get out of the way completely. We let the person facing the tragedy move towards us, instead of us moving towards them. And we tell ourselves things like, well, if they really need me, they'll reach out to me. And until then, we keep our distance because it's just too uncomfortable to get caught up in all the confusing feelings. And we hope that if they just have enough space, then things will get better. But no matter what approach we take to a person who's suffering, we all eventually try to do this right here. Fix it. We try to say something to make them feel better, to do something to help it be okay, to figure out the thing that's going to distract them or help them heal. Because that's what a friend does when they find themselves in a ripple of someone's darkness, right? They try to fix it, right? Well, not exactly. And I know that because I've done this very thing myself. And I've learned the hard way that a fix is not what my friends need most from me. So then how do you help them? Like, what's the secret? And today we're gonna look at a story that paints a beautiful picture of how to be a friend through pain. And I'm telling you, you gotta pay attention to this, because if you're not next to someone going through a time of darkness today, you will be one day. And what you do is a big deal. And in fact, the people around you won't be able to heal or find hope nearly as fast without you as they will with you. And so I wanna help you help them. And I think that this story shows us what the right move is every time you find yourself in the ripple zone around someone's hurt or someone's pain. And if you do this, you're gonna actually make a huge difference and maybe even see God use you. The story is found in the book of Ruth. Now, even though the book is named Ruth, the story actually starts with a woman named Naomi. Naomi lived in Israel with her husband and 2 sons. At some point, this family moves to a new land called Moab, and in Moab, a famine happens. The food situation gets really bad, and it gets so bad that Naomi's husband dies. Eventually, her 2 sons are married, but after 10 years, they also pass away, leaving just Naomi and her daughter-in-laws, Ruth and Orpah, as widows. That's right, Orpah was an actual name. Now, obviously, Naomi's world is rocked. I mean, who could blame her? She had been a wife and a mom, and that all changed. That all went away in an instant. And her life goes into grieving mode, and it never recovers. And even worse, she's starving, and people around her are starving and dying. And so Naomi makes the decision, I've got to go back to Israel. And so Naomi tells Ruth and Orpah to do something crazy, to abandon her. Naomi tries to convince them that staying with her would do them no good, and they could just remain in Moab and get remarried and have their own children and try to start again. She's convinced that it would be too much to ask them to take care of an old lady while they traveled and scavenged for food, so she gives them an out. And maybe you've seen someone else react this way when they've been hurt. Like they want people to go away. They create a bubble around themselves, and no one can get close. Like nothing you say helps, and that's exactly how Naomi felt. But thankfully, her daughter-in-law Ruth knew better. When Naomi told Ruth and Orpah to leave, Orpah did. She's like, all right, peace out. But Ruth was stubborn, and Ruth knew what Naomi was saying wasn't exactly what she wanted or needed. So when Naomi told the girls to leave, it didn't mean that she wanted to be alone. And that is where we pick up her story. Ruth says this, "Don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God." So Ruth and Naomi traveled together back to Naomi's homeland, the place where she had lived with her husband and 2 sons. And it was a lengthy period of time filled with a lot of grief. In fact, Naomi was in such pain that she tells people when she gets back to call her Mara, a name that actually meant bitter. Not exactly a cool nickname there. When Naomi and Ruth arrived in Bethlehem, the whole town was saddened by the sight of her. Some of them even wondered if it was really the same person. Is this really Naomi? Her pain had changed her. She looked and sounded different. She even called herself a different name. So how do you respond to someone in so much pain? The people from her town, they were stunned. And she told them, "I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty." Wow. Naomi is a picture of pain. And things got worse before they got better. Have you noticed that with some people who are going through pain? Like they have some good days only to wake up one morning, feeling like it happened just yesterday. They hear a song on the radio, they see an old picture, they recall a memory, and all of a sudden they seem to be going backwards instead of getting better. The book of Ruth goes on for several more chapters, and eventually things do get better. Ruth fell in love again, got married, and had a baby boy. And that baby boy ends up being an ancestor of Jesus himself. Yeah. Naomi had been like a mother to Ruth, which made Ruth's baby like a grandson to Naomi. And when the women of the town saw this, they said, "Praise be to the Lord, who this day has not left you without a guardian redeemer. May he become famous throughout Israel. He will renew your life and sustain you in your old age. For your daughter-in-law, who loves you and who is better to you than 7 sons, has given him birth." This ending doesn't discount Naomi's previous pain, but it does give promise to an end. Naomi recovered. She found joy and healing. Her life was full again. And you know who played the biggest role in that? Yeah, Ruth. God used Ruth. God used Ruth to help Naomi heal, to walk with her through the darkness, to fill her life again. And here's the important part. It wasn't because Ruth said all the right things or did all the right things to fix it. No, all Ruth did was stay by Naomi's side. She didn't perform some intervention where she quoted a bunch of Bible verses. She didn't fix everything with a hashtag that said hashtag help Naomi. She just showed up day after day after day and walked beside her. And that's what I want you to do when you find yourself next to someone in the middle of darkness. You don't have to figure out how to fix it, make it better, or make it go away, because you can't. You can't fix it. All you can do is be a friend. And that's what Ruth's story shows us. People in tragedy, what they need most is this. When it comes to tragedy, be a friend, not a fixer. Just be a friend. And keep on being a friend. Be a friend today and tomorrow and next week and for the next 3 months, maybe even for the next 2 years. Just keep showing up. In fact, I want to give you 4 ways that you can be a friend to someone going through a dark time. The first is to be there for them. Like sit with them at lunch, call or text them every day, go over to their house every other weekend for no reason at all, just to be there and love them, just to be their companion as they're struggling. Don't let them be alone. Fight for them to have loving friends around them. Second, love them. Encourage them, like write them a note, give them a ride, have their back in a conversation, take notes for them at school, just like figure out ways to love them well. Third thing you can do is to be patient. That's gonna be important because healing takes time. Romans 12:12 says to be patient in affliction or suffering. Getting through hard times, like however big or small or personal they may be, it requires us to be patient with ourselves and others as they work through them. It almost always takes longer than we think it should. And there's only one way to get to the other side, and that's just to keep going. Keep showing up, keep letting it out, keep holding on until one day you realize you actually got somewhere. And that takes patience. And then finally, what you need to do is you need to listen. Whenever they want to talk, be a great listener. You don't have to have answers or solutions. In fact, in the middle of Naomi's pain, Ruth doesn't try to say anything to cheer Naomi up. Like by saying things like, just trust God, or don't worry, God's in charge, or remember that God is in control. Those phrases, they're not bad, but sometimes the right words, the wrong time can be frustrating. And people don't need a lot of words, even true words, when the pain is like raw. They just need someone to listen. In Naomi's story, no one could make her feel better and move on. This was something she had to do herself. But eventually it happened. Eventually she was able to laugh again, to smile again, to see the other side of her tragedy. And it wasn't because someone said the right words and fixed it. It was because someone was with her. She did it with Ruth close by. She wasn't alone. So as you leave here today, I want you to think about who you know that may be experiencing a dark time. God wants to use you to help them. And you can. Not by being an expert, but by just being a friend. When people around you are walking through darkness, be a friend, not a fixer.